Buying a home is one of the most beautiful parts of life, or at least every realtor wants you to think so. But for many people across America, buying a home is actually not a beautiful part. In fact, that was my exact experience. I was actually told by my real estate agent when I bought my first house to not even show up to my home inspection. My name is David Brook, and I run one of the top real estate teams in the entire country. That's right, we sell homes in multiple states, hundreds and hundreds every single year. We're ranked by RealTrends as some of the top teams out there, and what my ambition and plans are to make sure that home buyers and sellers have an amazing experience whenever they work with one of our team members. So let me start with exactly where you go when you want to start your process in buying your first home. Okay, the first thing that you want to do is you want to actually speak with a lender. Now, as much as I'd love to say talk with a realtor first, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to go to the grocery store without knowing how much money I have in my pocket. So what are the items that a lender is going to request from you in order to actually get that pre-approval? Well, they're going to be asking for a few months of bank statements. They're also going to be asking you for 2 years worth of tax returns and proof of employment. They're also going to be asking for your driver's license and a credit report. Many people will say, well, I don't want my credit to get pulled, but actually this is a huge myth in the pre-approval process. Buyers have the opportunity to look around and search from lender to lender to find one that best fits their needs. What I mean by this is that all lending is not the same. If you go to one broker shop, they may in fact give you a different rate than another broker shop. Not generally just because of your own credit or income, etc., but also because of their own rates at which they're borrowing the money from. So it's very important to know that you can shop at a couple of different lenders in order to find not only a rate that's really good, but also service that fits with your needs. Here's what I mean by service that fits your needs. There are plenty of companies that are simply trying to get buyers out there to click on their website or to get pre-approvals through them because their rates appear low. However, every time we discount on cost, we are likely to discount in another area as well. In experience, if you are operating with someone who is local, and you might have benefit with that in the market, as other real estate professionals may feel comfort using that local lender, and also they may tell their seller, this is a great local lender, we have good experience with them. All of this is simply to say that all lenders are not the same, just as all real estate professionals are not the same and all doctors are not the same. But we want to operate with certainty in the process, and that's why a pre-approval is far superior to a pre-qualification letter. Don't just focus on the rate. Rates are really important because it's going to be the cost at which you're borrowing this money. However, if rate is the only focus, you may end up in a situation that you didn't want to get into because that company might not show you the service that you need in order to get your loan closed on time. Remember that great lenders are focused on relationships, not just transactions. If you ever feel in the process that you're not being prioritized, definitely speak with your real estate professional about your opportunities to talk to other lenders. Many buyers will say, well, I don't want to shop at other lenders because it's going to affect my credit score, and that's simply not true. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, as well as the credit bureaus, allow you to shop different lenders within a specific period of time so that it doesn't hurt your credit if you go to 1, 2, or 5 lenders in order to look for not only the best rates, but also the best service. Buyers will often ask, hey, do I really need to start this pre-approval process right now? Why can't I start it after I find the house of my dreams? Well, that's a really good question, and you can certainly do that. If you decide not even to buy a home, that's up to you completely. However, I just have to put myself in the situation if I wanted to find something and I wanted to buy it and I needed a mortgage in order to do that, I know that I'm probably going to have to submit some documents to people in order to make sure that I get a pre-approval letter, or better yet, what we'll talk about in a minute, an underwritten commitment letter. So how do we do that? If we decide to do that while we find a property, a seller may call for what's called highest and best offers, or a limited deadline in order for all offers to be present on the table, and they may do it over a weekend, which is very common. So it's really not a prudent or a diligent idea in order to wait until a weekend in order to submit documents. You may not in fact reach a lender who's available. This again goes back to that service process. You might find a lender with a really good rate, but maybe they're not available on weekends, or you can't talk to them directly. So how are we going to get all of our documents together? This always leads back to the idea, prior preparation prevents poor performance. Let's get all of our documents together, talk to a lender up front, and know and understand all of our loan strategies. Well, what do I mean about loan strategies? Whenever you apply for a mortgage, just realize that you might not just have one loan strategy, you might have multiple ones. There are some that are backed by the government and some that are not. There are some that allow you to put 0% down, 5% down, 20% down. All of these are different opportunities that you're gonna have in order to choose how you'd like to finance your home. I'd rather have those options up front personally well in advance to make an educated decision. Talk to my loan professionals and also my financial advisor in order to see which one best fits for me, rather than try to do that over a weekend and feel stressed about the urgency of that deadline. So what does it look like to actually get a commitment letter from a lender? Well, some buyers are actually very prudent about the process and know that they may be competing against other buyers who are interested in the same beautiful home that they are. That's a normal process and part of buying a home, especially in markets where there's not a lot of homes available all the time. So what does that look like? Well, in speaking with a lender, the next process beyond just having a conversation is submitting your documents. We talked about that before in the difference between a pre-qualification letter and a pre-approval letter. Well, what's the step after that? After all of those documents are received, we can talk with a little bit more certainty about what we can afford, what monthly payments may look like, but the bank fully hasn't underwritten the file. Well, some lenders will actually take those documents and send them through their underwriting department in order to say, apart from an appraisal on the home, this is an independent third party valuing the home to tell you what it's worth, this file is good to close. Now, what that means is that you may in fact be able to receive this thing called mortgage commitment, or your lender's commitment to lend, in a very short period of time. Just to give you some examples, many lenders will require around 30 days in order to give commitment. However, if two offers are presented on the table and one of them can close or give you that commitment letter in 7 days and another is going to take 30 days, which, you must ask this question, provides more certainty to a seller? Certainly the one that has that greater certainty level that's been fully underwritten. So why would we not start that process early on in order to understand what can we afford and how close are we to getting mortgage commitment? It would be my encouragement to you, if you are looking for a home, speak with a lender first. This is your first step into buying a property. Look at all your loan options. Talk to a few different lenders to see which one best fits for you, not only with rate, but also with service. See where you're valued and see what loan opportunities you have with different lenders. And then talk to your real estate professional about finding homes that fit within those loan strategies and options in order to find your new home. The second step to buying a home is to choose your realtor. Now, what is a realtor and what are they supposed to do? Many people have some mixed up feelings about this. Many people also have the experience of calling a real estate agent who's on the sign of the property they want to see, and that person comes out and opens up the door and maybe they write an offer together. But did that really help the buyer in any specific way? Well, no, it didn't. So let me give you a couple of recommendations on how to find a really good realtor that's going to fit with you. My first recommendation is this: ask a realtor what their team is like. If they have questions like, what do you mean, what is my team like? That's your first red flag. Realtors who work on teams are the ones who actually are running themselves like a business. For instance, if you went to the dentist's office and you walked in and that dentist checked you in, then verified your insurance, and then also cleaned your teeth, and then also performed whatever dental operation you needed, then checked you out and set your next appointment, you might ask yourself, do you have anyone else who works here, and how is this actual business running? And that's the same exact way that happens in real estate. It would be kind of weird if there's one person who does all the paperwork, takes all the calls in, helps every buyer, helps every seller. They're kind of running this as a solopreneur, and although they might sell a lot of homes, you have to ask yourself, in this process of buying a house, do I want someone who's just solo, or do I want a team of people behind myself? For myself, I want a team of individuals helping me so that in the process of buying a home, if I had a question about my transaction, if I wanted to know where my home being listed was, where the photographer's at, can you tell me about the appraisal? If my realtor wasn't immediately available, because naturally they're going to work with other customers as well, I'd want someone to be able to speak to in order to have a conversation about that. Or in the instance that I had a high-level issue that escalated for whatever reason and my realtor wasn't able to answer it, I want to know about the attorneys or the brokers involved and how they could collectively help me to reach my goals more effectively as a competent team. So recommendation number one, ask them what their team looks like and how they're going to best be able to serve you. Okay, my second recommendation in order to pick a realtor in the process of buying a home is this: local matters. It really does. So people will say all the time, oh yeah, I serve that area. Do you really serve that area? Do you know that area? So without asking those questions of like, have you sold a home in that area? Because it's possible someone could have just driven, through, I met someone and then I sold that home. That's not really a qualifier if you know that area. The best way is just to be inquisitive. Tell me about the best areas here. Tell me about the best restaurants. Tell me a little bit about the school systems. Ask those questions about the locality there and what it's actually like. Ask them to take a drive out for you. Hey, would you mind showing me what that area is? Do you have any pre-recorded videos about what it's like to live in this town? Or do you have any references or any testimonials from someone who has lived in that area? It might be a really good idea in order to do so. I'll relate back to point one. If they have a team of individuals that work together, then they may have a realtor that's located in that specific town that you want to buy, but you may also want a couple of other towns as other suggestions. They may have realtors in each one of those areas, and collectively as a team, they can help you decide which area is best for you and fits your needs most, and they'll have the best local knowledge as to where to live and what it's like to actually reside in that town. My third recommendation in order to find the best real estate agent that fits for you is set expectations up front. Many realtors and their clients don't set those expectations up front, and I'll tell you, every time in any type of relationship, especially business, they end poorly when expectations are not set. So if you have the expectation that you want your realtor to send you all of the documents about a property right up front, make that known. If you have an expectation that, you know what, I already received notifications from Zillow and I really don't want that portal email, then tell them that. However, be open-minded to the process that a realtor may say, although you receive notifications from Zillow, they don't always give you the most accurate data, so use my portal just as another verification tool to find out what that property that just came to the market is actually like, and maybe there's details about it that's not available on Zillow that is available on my portal app. So set those expectations up front. Also set expectations with the realtor about how long it's going to take for you to find a home or not. Realtors want to work with people who are ready to buy and sell. Although it's easy to say, you know what, I'm just in that soul searching process, I'm not really sure what to do, realtors may in fact try to prioritize based upon them having a lot of other clients who are ready to go right now. If you reach out to your realtor and you say, you know what, I'm looking to buy a house in the next 6 months and my expectations are that you follow up every week, if they can follow up that much, great. Make that a priority for them and for you by setting those proper expectations. My last recommendation for finding a realtor, suggestion number 4, is this: focus on a realtor that fits with your needs. What I mean by that is this: there are plenty of realtors who, like myself, have sold real estate for over a decade and have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of sales under their record. They might have tons of reviews, but you know what? They've got so many clients that they're really, really busy and it's hard for them to give a lot of attention to any one person. You may not like that. I have had great experiences working and training real estate agents that are literally brand new in the business, but are extremely diligent. Some realtors come from other professions where they may have been required to submit long reports and detailed valuations about specific things, and although they're new in the business, their actions and their process are second to none. And so my recommendation to you is this: as you begin to talk with a couple of realtors out there, watch to see which ones are the most diligent, which ones follow up most frequently, which ones ask those questions for you that really give you that indication, comfort level, that they're looking out for your best interests. Remember, realtors are supposed to work in your best interest. It's very, very challenging for someone who's signed an agreement with a seller already. Their name is on the sign and they're already asked, sell my house for the best amount. Don't ask, try not to get anything in inspections to show up. Try to get someone to pay cash or as much cash as possible, and also match that up with you on the buyer side and represent you in the same way. It's nearly impossible. And so my strong recommendation is this: find yourself a realtor that's not only going to look out for your best interests, but is also going to be local, set those best expectations for you, and have a team of support behind them so that they can best serve you and your family. Step 3 in finding yourself a new home is getting educated on the contract. But David, wait a second, I haven't even stepped foot out of my house in order to find a new home yet. Why do I need to get educated on the local contract? Well, if you're relocating from one state to another, even towns, sometimes in counties, can use different contracts, so your home buying experience may be very different where you currently are to where you are going. So step 1 was find a lender. Step 2 is a realtor. Well, that realtor can also provide you a copy of an actual local contract. Now, why is this so important? Well, I sell thousands of homes over the course of my career, and during that time period, I always go over with my client what the actual purchase contract looks like. Why? Well, because can you imagine going and seeing a property, ready to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on a property, and being shown a contract with a deadline? Like, we have to get this in by 6 o'clock and it's 5 pages or 6 pages. I've never looked at any of these terms. Should I have an attorney review this? I actually have a few questions about these terms. So that's why we go over the contract right up front. So here's my 5 areas that I would, inside of looking at the contract, pay really close attention to. Number 1 is going to be those offer terms. What are all of the blanks inside of the contract that are really important? And not only the blanks, what are the sort of terms here? Are they have a term about marketable title? Do they have a term about condition of the property and risk of loss? What happens if the water heater breaks on the property while I'm buying the home? Who's responsible for that? If there are damages that are discovered during an inspection process, who has to cover these, or are they not covered? All of these questions actually get answered when you operate with prudence and diligence way up front. Your realtor should set up what's called a buyer consultation where they walk through the entire contract. Mine typically takes somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half while we familiarize ourselves with the market in order to see what the expectations are going to be like. So number 1 on here is familiarize yourself with the terms of the offer. In our specific contracts locally, we have somewhere between 20 and 30 terms that need to be clearly outlined so you understand those. Once you understand them, now you're going to understand the sense and the atmosphere of what it's like to be under contract in the particular area that you're looking for a home in. Number 2, within the contract, you're going to want to really understand the deposits. Deposits are your skin in the game in the contract. So I've had people before say, oh my gosh, I have to bring a check now? And it's like, well, yeah, do you have a checkbook? And they're like, well, no, I don't have a checkbook. I use an online bank. It's gonna take 10 days in order to get there. But our contract states we need to get the deposit there today. So that's why it's so important to really understand those deposits. When you have that conversation with the lender beforehand, now you're gonna understand, am I putting 0% down, 10%, 5% down, whatever that is. Sometimes even if you're not putting any money down, meaning you're financing 100% of the actual purchase price, the seller may still want you to put down a deposit, but you might get that deposit back at the closing. In any case, you really want to be absolutely crystal clear on what the deposits and expectations around those deposits are going to be. Do you need to bring a personal check, a certified check? When do they need to get delivered by? How can I get them back if all of a sudden I decide I need to back out of the deal? Understanding deposits is fundamental to understanding what it's going to be like in the real estate transaction. Tip number 3 in understanding and getting educated on the local contract is mortgages. Now, we already talked about how do I find a lender and what are the best processes behind that. Well, going through the actual mortgage process and understanding, man, do I get an appraisal on this property and how do I back out and what terms are involved inside of my mortgage? How long is that going to take? All of that is very important because in certain states, they do approach the mortgage commitment differently. And so I cannot encourage you enough. Go watch that video on the step number 1, which is how to pick your lender. When you pick that lender, talk about getting a fully underwritten mortgage commitment subject to an appraisal as soon as possible. Understanding mortgages inside of the purchase process is one of the most crucial in order to understand how to buy a home. Tip number 4 in understanding a local contract are the inspections. Well, no one wants to go and buy something that they really didn't understand. Think about it. When you go on a showing, do you really get an opportunity to look under everything, through everything? Can you really get in the attic and check out the rafters? If you are in an area of the country with a basement, can you go through and review everything? Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. And many very skilled realtors will actually have contractors accompany them on inspections if they know it's going to be a busy market. For more tips and strategies, feel free to reach out directly about that. But what we can advise you on is this: understanding, do I have the ability to inspect this property, or am I going to be buying it as is without an inspector? Well, understanding who can be my inspector. Can it be my Uncle George who happens to know a lot about houses, or does it have to be a licensed inspection service by that state that you're located in? Can I bring in a chimney inspector to the property, or do I have to only use one or the other? Understanding all of the terms around that and asking questions of your realtor and having them inform you on that inspection process is very important. Lastly, it's also extremely important to understand the costs that go into these inspections. Some properties may be more expensive than others, not only just based upon the size, but also based upon some of the other components. If you buy a home that has a well or a septic system, those are going to be 2 additional costs on top of the home inspection. If you want to inspect for radon in a home or lead or asbestos, those all may be additional fees. So it's a really good idea to understand, how much is this going to cost me to fully inspect the property? And if I back out, can I get my deposit back? What's that going to be like? Understanding inspections, paramount to understanding the local contract. Closing is important. We all want to get the house of our dreams. We all want to move in, but what's it like on that day of closing? Well, it might be different for everyone. Here's what I mean by that. Closings look different all across the country. Some are done with attorneys and some are done with title companies. Without getting into that, you can certainly watch my video on that. We want to talk about what the closing expectations are like when you're looking at the local contract. Well, in some areas of the country, we're going to be closing right on that day that we decide that we're bringing our money. In some areas, you might actually bring all of your final deposits a few days before your actual closing. The other expectations are, does the actual deed get recorded in county records or in town records that day that you close? Do you have access to the property the day that you close on the home, or does it start the very next day? What is access like? When can I start moving in my items? When can I not? Are there going to be other occupants that are in the home? Does the seller get a certain amount of time to move out of the property after the closing? All of these are really important to understand, and the only way that you're going to do that is to really truly understand the local contract that you have. So if you're moving from one part of the country to another, or even just from one county inside of a state to another, they may actually use different contracts. Ask your local realtor to show you a copy of the purchase contract and to schedule what's called a buyer consultation in order to walk you through every single line of that contract so you fully understand the expectations of both the buyer and the seller in the process and what's going to happen not only through deposits and other terms of the contract, your mortgages, inspections, and your closing. For more videos, follow me below so you can understand how best to buy a home.